Well, good evening, everybody. I'm back. Thanks for joining me tonight for a concert of authentic ragtime. As I said last week, I think this is something I should do at least once a year because it's a big part of the music that I play. And I'm calling it authentic ragtime, not just classic ragtime, so that I can play many of the ragtime era songs as well, and not just piano instrumentals. So there'll be a variety of music, and I'm always happy to take requests as usual. But I'm going to start things out here on this St. Patrick's Day with a very patriotic number, because the earliest instrumental piano rags were all based on the march form. And the king of the march was John Philip Sousa. So I thought, let's start with Stars and Stripes Forever. Now, this is also interesting because Stars and Stripes Forever was written in 1897, the year that the Mississippi Rag came out, the first piece of music with ragtime in the title. It was the same year as this famous march. The way I play it, I do the trio 3 times. I play it the way it was written, and then I do the piccolo part, and on the third run through, I play it in ragtime. Stars and Stripes Forever. Thank you so much, everybody. Stars and Stripes Forever. Well, the march form became very important in the early instrumental rags, which all pretty much have 3 or 4 sections and a trio, just like march music. The cakewalk was a dance of the ragtime years that started in the 1890s. Whistling Rufus's cakewalk at a Georgia camp meeting. Mississippi rag is really more of a cakewalk than it is a true rag. But here I'll play a piece for you, written in part by Scott Joplin, the king of ragtime, and one of his piano students, Arthur Marshall, which is also a cakewalk. From the year 1900, this was the first piece Joplin wrote after the Maple Leaf Rag, and really most of it was probably written by Arthur Marshall. Historians believe that Joplin only wrote the 3rd section of this piece. And they were standing in the music publisher's office and saw a boy swipe a newspaper across the street, so they decided to call it Swipesy. This is the Swipesy Cakewalk. Thank you very much. Swipesy Cakewalk. According to an interview with Arthur Marshall, they actually started writing that piece in 1899, and at the time, all that he and Joplin had to practice on was an old square grand piano, which are really kind of pretty bad instruments that go way back to the mid-19th century. And that's all they had at that time. Well, it looks like everything's working, and hopefully you'll get to hear an entire concert tonight. And if you enjoy this kind of music, I do accept virtual tips for these performances. All you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo, and there is PayPal and Venmo information in the chats and in the postings on all 3 websites. I'm trying to make a career out of playing this kind of music, and I think I mentioned on one of my recent concerts that aside from one or two gigs in my whole life, I have never worked with an agent. There's never been one that's willing to take me. If anybody knows any, let me know. Because so far, the virtual concerts are one of the best things I've been able to come up with, and it's been very helpful thanks to all of you. Let's go ahead and cover the Irish music right now. People who tune in later in the concert, well, they just may miss the Irish tunes, but let's do it right now. Since it's St. Patrick's Day, when I get requests for this, I usually play a medley of 3 tunes which are old-time waltzes. 2 of them go way back to the 1890s. I'm going to start out with Sweet Rosie O'Grady, which was written by Maud Nugent, one of the vaudeville stars of the 1890s. And then we're going to do the famous My Wild Irish Rose, written in part by Chauncey Olcott, one of the Irish tenors of the time. And he also wrote a tune in 1912 called When Irish Eyes Are Smiling, which was introduced by Ernest Arball's wife, which was Maud Lambert. When Irish Eyes Are Smiling was written by both Ernest Arball and Chauncey Olcott, I believe. So anyhow, here's 3 old-time Irish waltzes. It's not really Irish music. I don't play the fiddle. I can't do Celtic music, but these are Irish-themed melodies from the 1890s and early 1900s. Thank you so much. That's my Irish waltz medley. I wish I thought to wear some green tonight. Why didn't I think of that? At least I've got a green piece of music on the piano. Could have worn a green bow tie or something. I wish I thought of that. Well, next up, I'm going to do a tune which I hardly ever play, and I even have to look at the lead sheet for the music because I only play this about once a year. If I get a request for it in the Diamond Bell or something, I'm going to do the old Irish ballad, Danny Boy, and we'll see what I can do with it. This is one of those things where you kind of make it up as you go along, and it's really a folk song. And what I call a folk song is an old melody where nobody really knows who wrote it. It's not folk music as in banjo and fiddle music from the 1960s folk revival. That's a different kind of thing. But a folk song is one where it's a traditional melody that's been around forever and nobody really knows who wrote it. That's the case with this. I'm going to play it first like a ballad, and then it'll be more in ragtime. Oh, Danny Boy. Thank you very much, Danny Boy. Well, maybe I should play that more often. That's kind of fun, wasn't it? All right. Well, now that I've done the Irish tunes for tonight, I've got that out of the way. What else would you like to hear? Let me try and get in some requests for all of you tonight. Let me know what you'd like. I'm going to check all the websites so I try not to miss anything. I don't see any big requests here. sometimes takes a minute for them to come in online. Oh, all right. Here's one from Max Libertor, who's a great young ragtime pianist. Let's do the Junkman Rag by Lucky Roberts, and I played in the key of C sharp, the way that Lucky originally did it. So here's the Junkman Rag, 1913. Thank you very much. Junkman Rag by Lucky Roberts. His style was totally unique. In the old days, all the ragtime pianists had a different style. And they wouldn't just sit there and play one rag after another. They might throw in an Irish ballad, not unlike what I just played. And I'm going to do some of the ragtime era songs as well tonight. For every piano instrumental, there had to be hundreds, if not thousands, of ragtime songs. And here's one of the real early ones from the year 1899, which was kind of one of the landmark years in the ragtime. Of course, that was the year that Maple Leaf Rag was written. And it was the turn of the century. New things were happening. And this is one of the first songs written about the invention of the telephone. It was written by Joseph E. Howard. And I think his wife was Ida Emerson. I'm not sure if they were married. I think so. Ida Emerson was one of the vaudeville stars of the day. They introduced this song. Joseph E. Howard wrote it. And it's called Hello, My Baby. Hello, My Gal. Hello, My Ragtime Gal. Send me a kiss by wire. Honey, my heart's on fire. It was one of the first songs to talk about the telephone. Here is one of the real early ones, Hello, My Baby, complete with the original verse. Thank you very much. Hello, My Baby. I still get a lot of requests for that song. Joseph E. Howard was in show business for decades and decades. The other two tunes he wrote that were the most famous were Goodbye, My Lady Love and I Wonder Who's Kissing Her Now. They made a movie about his life, and if you want to hear him sing, he had a beautiful voice. Go to my YouTube channel and you can see a video I posted of Joseph E. Howard singing those three songs, his big hits, on the George Jessel show in the 1950s. And it's really fun to see him kind of dance a cakewalk with Hello, My Baby. Michigan J. Frog, yeah, that's right. That's why I get a lot of requests for that song, even now. I did see some other requests now that I can get to. Just give me a minute and I'll try and get to a number of them. Of course, I'll be doing some James Scott and Joe Lamb tonight. But let's do some more Scott Joplin before I go much further. Sometimes I like to go through the history of the music in kind of a chronological way and then tell you about how it developed. So I saw a request for the Peacherine Rag. Maybe I'll play that for you next. I like the early Joplin rags in particular because they were a little bit more simple, easy to understand, very melodic, and just make you want to tap your feet. This is one of those numbers from 1901, the Peacherine Rag by Scott Joplin. so much. The Peacherine Rag. Let's see if I can get in some more requests here. Okay, got a request for Bohemia Rag. I'll play that a little bit later on. Got a request for some Charles L. Johnson. I could certainly do that tonight. Yeah, I'll play the Cascades again sometime soon. I'm sorry it got cut off. Oh, how interesting. Bob Milne's listening. He says, rumor has it that Joplin wrote those left-hand runs in the Cascades as an answer to Turpin's St. Louis rag runs. That would make a lot of sense. That's very interesting. Gosh, I've got enough good requests tonight. I hardly know what to play next. I do have a lot of people, obviously, that listen to my concerts that really know authentic ragtime. You know what I'm going to do? This was not a request, but I'd like to play for you a song which is really one of the great ragtime era songs. Again, for every instrumental piano rag, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of ragtime songs. And this is one of the great ones. It dates all the way to 1903, and it was written in part by the great minstrel man Eddie Leonard. Eddie Leonard was a legend at that time, but sadly he never made any records, and he did appear in 2 movies, only one of which survives, and believe it or not, it's a Bing Crosby movie called If I Had My Way, where Bing starred with the child star Gloria Jean, and you get to see some old vaudevillians, you get to see Blanche Ring, and you also get to see Eddie Leonard sing and dance to Ida, Sweet as Apple Cider. The verse to this is in tango time, which is kind of unusual. And then later on, of course, Eddie Cantor made this tune famous because his wife's name was Ida. Thank you very much, Ida, sweet as apple cider. Like I said, I've seen so many good requests tonight that it's hard for me to know what to play next. Let me think. Medic Rag, I've never played that. I'm going to do the Joe Lamb in the second half of the concert. I did see a request for some music by Tom Turpin, specifically the Bowery Buck. This came from Mike in Colorado Springs. Let me go ahead and play that for you. This dates all the way back to 1899. And Turpin, of course, was one of the great early ragtime players. I think he started a lot of the style of music that we now think of as ragtime. And he owned the Rosebud Saloon in St. Louis. And he only wrote about a half a dozen tunes. This one is called the Bowery Buck. And the third part of it was supposedly a popular street organ melody in the Chestnut Valley in St. Louis and that area. So here from 1899 is Bowery Buck by Tom Turpin. The story goes that Turpin was so tall that he had to put his piano up on bricks to play it. I think he was 6'8" or something like that. Bowery Buck. Thank you so much, the Bowery Buck. All right, let's move on now to one of the other great rag composers. There were three who were considered really the greatest in musical quality, sometimes known as the Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms of ragtime, and that's Scott Joplin, James Scott, and Joe Lamb. And let's do James Scott next. Jimmy Scott was born in Neosho, Missouri. He grew up in Carthage, Missouri, and later spent a lot of his life in Kansas City, which of course was a very musical city. And Jimmy Scott played for silent movies there in the 1920s. But the most popular piece he ever composed was published by John Stark, who was Joplin's friend and music publisher, in 1906. And supposedly this piece sold more copies than anything else in John Stark's catalog except for the Maple Leaf Rag. And it's called the Frog Legs Rag by James Scott. Frog Legs Rag. Thank you so much, everybody. Fun tune indeed. Yes, it does sound a little bit like Maple Leaf Rag. You know, it's written in the same keys. I don't even know that there's any proof that Scott Joplin and Jimmy Scott ever met each other, but they had to. You know, their music clearly, well, James Scott's music is more influenced by Scott Joplin than the other way around. Joplin was really the pioneer in the world of classic ragtime. Well, I see a request for a piece that I was thinking about playing anyway. This comes from Stephen Mumford. He wants to hear Solace. I'd like to play a slower tune anyway, so let's do that next. Solace is the only tango written by Scott Joplin. In 1909, later made very famous in the movie The Sting. And it's just a gorgeous piece of music. I never have committed it to memory, so I have to get the sheet music out here. And I'll play it for you now. Solace, a Mexican Serenade by Scott Joplin. solaces. Thank you very much, everyone. That piece definitely demonstrates the genius of Scott Joplin. He wrote such beautiful melodies. Probably my favorite American composer. Even among the 20th century American classical composers, I think Joplin's melodies are superior. But that's my not so humble opinion. Anyway, it's after 7 o'clock here in Durango, Colorado already. And so if you enjoy this music, please consider leaving a virtual tip. It's very helpful to my career. There's both PayPal and Venmo information in the postings, and I have a P.O. box on my website as well. If you don't trust PayPal and prefer to send a check in the mail as a tip, that works too. And let's see. Oh, you know, the numbers are up. The viewers are up this weekend. I'm thrilled about that. I think my last concert was in the middle of the Oscars and I didn't realize it. So anyhow, let's see what's next on my list. I mentioned in my Facebook postings that I might do a little bit of early blues music tonight, and this piece will have to suffice to cover that. I was thinking about playing the one really great instrumental rag by W.C. Handy, the father of the blues. And this was written in 1916. One of the interesting things about this is that it's one of the tunes that Scott Joplin himself recorded on a hand-played player piano roll. It was the only piece that Joplin did on a piano roll that he did not compose himself. So he must have thought it was a good piece. And there is speculation that Joplin may have written part of it. I think the second theme does sound a bit like Scott Joplin. But the number was written by W.C. Handy, the father of the blues, the man that wrote the Memphis Blues and the St. Louis Blues. It came out in 1916, and this is called the Ole Miss Rag. And just like Yona Dog Blues, it was originally called Rag, and he later changed the title to Blues. Ole Miss Rag. Old Miss Rag. Thank you very much, folks. Yeah, we might be topping the record for a number of listeners tonight. That's fantastic. Well, as such, I should probably play some familiar music for you. And let's do another one of the ragtime songs, the type of ragtime that most people were familiar with, the type of songs they sang in vaudeville. And here's an early one from 1902. Written about a real man who worked on the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad in Jackson, Michigan. This is Bill Bailey, Won't You Please Come Home? Complete with the original verse. Thank you very much. Bill Bailey, Won't You Please Come Home? Well, let's go back to the classic rags now. Classic ragtime, of course, was a term coined by the music publisher John Stark. It doesn't mean classical music, it means classic as in the best of this style. Ragtime had a lot of syncopation and other elements that classical piano did not have. It's the first truly original American popular music. I've played music by Scott Joplin, James Scott, and Joe Lamb is next. We'll do my favorites from 1919. This is the last rag that Joe Lamb published during the original period. It's called Bohemia Rag. Bohemia Rag. Thank you very much, everybody. It's the Bohemia Rag, not the Bohemian Rag, and it has nothing to do with Bohemian Rhapsody. I get a lot of requests for that, but I've never even heard the piece. I have two pieces of music sitting on the piano that I thought I'd play for you tonight. And these are really two of the great ragtime songs of the period, the vaudeville-style songs. And they were both written by the same man, Shelton Brooks. I saw I got a request for one of his tunes earlier, and I thought I'd play both of these back to back. They're both really terrific tunes and famous pieces of the ragtime era. First, from way back in 1910, Shelton Brooks, his big hit, Some of These Days, which became Sophie Tucker's theme song. And I brought out the original music because I have two copies that are autographed by Shelton Brooks himself. As all of you know, I worked closely with Johnny Maddox for a number of years, and I have a special file in my collection of all the music that was autographed for Johnny by the songwriters and composers that he met during his career. He gave me most of them before he died, but there were a couple that I forgot about, including these, and I was very lucky to finally get them when they were sold on eBay, when Johnny went into assisted living. And there can't be too many of these floating about. Here is the original cover, Some of These Days, autographed by Shelton Brooks himself. Johnny got these not through Shelton Brooks, but through another pianist in L.A. named David Bourne, who was one of the founding members of the Maple Leaf Club. And I have a letter here from Dave Bourne. So it was in 1972. He had Shelton Brooks autograph these tunes. And even though Sophie Tucker was the one that's famous for this, Blossom Seeley is on the cover of this copy of the music. Here's Some of These Days, complete with the original verse. of these days. Thank you very much. That was the theme song for Sophie Tucker, the last of the Red Hot Mamas. And for 1910, it was really quite a sophisticated piece of music. And now here's the other one. This is the very original edition with the original cover artwork of the famous Darktown Strutter's Ball, autographed by Shelton Brooks. Maybe a little hard to see on the computer, but there you are, from 1917. There can't be too many copies of these floating around. I do have a couple of other Shelton Brooks autographs, and I know Dr. Elliott Adams, the ragtime pianist from Sacramento, met Shelton Brooks, and I have seen his copies of these two pieces, both signed for him by Shelton Brooks. But here's the Darktown Strutter's Ball, and I play it the way that Johnny used to do it, with another tune from the same year called Jada, Jada Jada Jing Jing Jing. Thank you so much, the Darktown Strutter's Ball. Well, send me in some requests, folks. I can probably get to a few more here tonight. I have one more classic rag that I want to play for you. I might do that next. I'm checking Facebook now. Sometimes I forget about Facebook. I'm up over 200 viewers tonight, which is really terrific. Don't forget to hit the like button and share it on your social media as well. My goal is to spread this music far and wide. Oh, okay. I've seen this request about 2 or 3 times now. This comes from Jim. Tickled to Death. He wants to hear a Charles Hunter rag. I'll play that for you next, and then do that other classic rag I mentioned. From way back in 1899, Tickled to Death, the biggest hit written by Charles Hunter, who was a blind piano tuner from Nashville, the greatest Nashville ragtime composer. death. Thank you so much. Oh, I saw that request for King Chanticleer too. Maybe I'll end the concert with that. I want to play one more classic rag for you. Another example of James Scott's music. I have often played Frog Legs. I have played New Era Rag, Calliope Rag, which was partly written by Bob Darch. But there's one more, and I haven't played this quite as often. That is one that I love. And James Scott was really the last one of the classic ragtime composers to continue publishing and composing this type of music. His last classic rag, I think it was Broadway Rag, came out in 1922, by which time jazz had really taken over. This piece is from 1921, and it has an ironic title. It's called Don't Jazz Me, Rag, subtitled I'm Music. So Jimmy Scott must not have been much of a fan of jazz. It says, dedicated to Alex Pearson, Los Angeles, California. I don't know if historians have any idea who that was, but perhaps he was a great ragtime player who didn't care for jazz either. So just for the fun of it now, Don't Jazz Me, Rag, I'm Music, by James Scott, 1921. Don't Jazz Me by James Scott. Well, now let me see what's next. I think I'll end the concert with King Chanticleer. I've seen that request 2 or 3 times, but I could use about one more here, folks. Oh, Whoa Nelly is a wonderful tune, but I can't do that without the sheet music in front of me. No, I don't know that. Oh, I've seen, let me do this piece. I've seen a couple of requests now from my friend Dwayne in Memphis for a piece of music that is based in part on a very famous classical melody. So this might be a good one to play to add a little clash to the program. From 1918. This was written by George L. Cobb, the same man that wrote Alabama Jubilee and Are You From Dixie? And it's based very loosely, only about the first three notes, is based on Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C sharp minor. We're going to do the famous Russian Rag from 1918. Thank you so much. Russian Rag, written by George L. Cobb. Well, I think I'll only play one more tune for you tonight. I will be back next week as usual with a virtual concert on all 3 websites, so please join me. I'm not 100% sure what the concert will be. I have a couple of ideas in the back of my mind, one of which is to play the first published pieces by famous composers, and as well as maybe some obscure tunes by composers who are otherwise very famous. I might do the first tune idea, the first published tune. That might be one of the ideas that I use here in the near future. But regardless, there will be a virtual concert, and please join me. I'm delighted to see the numbers up this week. And now I'm going to end this concert of authentic ragtime with one of the ragtime era songs written by Nat D. Ayre, who's the man that wrote "Oh You Beautiful Doll," a famous tune. This one goes back to 1910, and it was a famous dance number of the period. Also, this is the arrangement I cooked up when I was playing at Carnegie Hall. I saw that Kelly mentioned that. I still play it the same way. And that was a long time ago. I hate to tell you, it was 12 years ago, and I haven't been back. Funny how that worked. Anyway, here is King Chanticleer. It makes a great piano showpiece. Thank you so much. King Chanticleer. Well, it's been a pleasure playing for all of you tonight. Thank you so much for listening as always, and I appreciate those virtual tips if you can do it. And I will see all of you next week. Looking forward to another fun virtual concert next Sunday night. Good night for now, everyone.